Hey everyone, it is Matt Krieger here to walk through our March KPI report. March was kind of a fascinating month. We did slightly beat last month, or excuse me, the March of last year. This year we were at this 25,905. Last year we were at this 24,728. That's average of revenue per location. But what's interesting is comparing March to February. We did about $100,000 less revenue system wide from February to March. But as you'll see down here, we actually did more appointments. We did about 330, 335-ish more appointments. So our revenue per appointment actually went down. We were at $372 at average revenue per appointment. That's less than we were at year to date. So the question is that, what's going on with that? Well, if we look at this $372 per appointment, and I look back at last March, it's pretty much on par. It's 377 last March, 372 this March. So our revenue per appointment is approximately the same. One of the things we talked about at the convention in February was we do got to make sure that we're looking at our pricing, make sure that we are updating our pricing. If there's a concern I have about this 372 compared to last year at 377, there's a lot of things that go into that, right? We're talking about this over 1,800 appointments, and so that when you average it out, there's a lot of factors that can go into that. But on average, we do want to make sure that we are increasing our pricing year over year. And so the fact that we're flat or down a little bit tells me that maybe we have not done that. And so we do want to increase that pricing. As inflation grows, if we're not increasing the pricing, and that's our labor inflation, that's our materials inflation, everything. If we're not increasing pricing, essentially what we're doing is just decreasing our profit. So something to look at. But again, this 372 is significantly less than February, right? In February, our average revenue per appointment was over $500. It was $531. Well, if I look back to last year, we saw the same trend. In February last year, we saw a much higher revenue per appointment than we saw in March. I think that's probably an indication of the fact that there's different types of work we're doing in February. I know there's snow removal, there's seasonal work, and that's just much higher and profitable work. A matter of fact, if I look at our revenue per appointment in January, it's $473. If I go back to, $485. If I go back to last summer, let me just go through April through August here real quick. 322, 268, 262, 293, 244. So we can see that in the summer, when we kind of get into the normal mode of landscaping maintenance, that revenue per appointment does come down. In fact, I would be surprised if in April we don't see it drop again. Last April we were at 322. I think this April will probably be somewhere in the same ballpark. So again, I think the takeaway really is to make sure that we're monitoring that pricing. If we have not done pricing adjustments, I think it is time to look and say, okay, what does 3 to 5% increases look like on our pricing if we have not adjusted that in the last year? Obviously, if it's a new client, if it's somebody you've only been working with for 6 months, it might not be the time to do it. But if it is somebody that we've been working with for over the last year, it probably is. System-wide, year to date, we're tracking significantly higher than we were last year. We had very strong January and Februarys this year, and that's really what's driving it. You can see that we had about a $1,200 increase here in March over last year, but really it was January and February that are driving this increase. Our appointment completion rate, that came back up to 93%. That's kind of more within the range of where we were last summer. All of this is really explainable, just the fact that as weather variations hit in December and January and February, when we're dealing with snow, there's just times we can't complete the appointments when the weather is a little bit more volatile. And so again, nothing alarming here, but we are getting back up to that kind of standard 93, 94, 95%, which is really where we want to live. As we look through proposals, 383 proposals this month. That was down pretty significantly, both in dollars and in number of proposals from February. In February, we sent out 504 proposals. Makes a little bit of sense in terms of seasonality. And again, we're still just trying to kind of track seasonality, but it makes a little bit of sense in terms of seasonality. That in February, when we're doing less appointments, we just have more time to send out more proposals. The one thing I will say is if I look at proposals, average proposals sent out last March, I'm just getting to my number right here. We were at 381, so essentially about the same. Um, and and uh, and so yeah, I just think what we're seeing is a little bit seasonal. Now, what I expect to see in April, last year what we saw in April system wide was over 550 proposals. That led into May where we saw over 600 proposals. And so we saw our proposal number and volume significantly go up. You can see that here in April, you can see that here in May. Look at the number of proposals here. And then this green line is the dollar volume of those proposals. So, I'm hoping in April and May, if we can target system wide to hit over $3 million of value of proposals, that's really going to be a good indicator for growth. The other good thing that we saw is in February, look at this close rate, 39%, second highest we've seen since we started tracking it. That's phenomenal. This 19% is not alarming. Remember, this is really a trailing statistic because a lot of the proposals at the end of March hadn't really had time to be accepted, right? Those aren't going to be accepted until the first part of April. We're going to see this number come back up. We just don't know how far. We saw the same thing in February. It's the same kind of trend we see each month. But the fact that we had 39% acceptance rate, and look at January and December, 35, 33, really some good trends in terms of close rate here. Average days to close, 10 days in March. That comes off 11 and 12 and in January. So we're getting good, quick decisions on most work. If I'm sitting in your shoes right now, I really am tracking against this stuff. What is my close rate? If my close rate was 20% in February and the system-wide average was 39%, well, why? What was my average acceptance value significantly higher? Was my average proposal value significantly lower? And remember, this number includes some big proposals. I would take this number with a grain of salt. When we actually look at and we eliminate kind of that top 100 value, that average proposal value actually comes down closer to about $2,200. So take this with a grain of salt. But really, I think the best thing to do in terms of these sales metrics is just to track what's my individual location doing versus some of this data here. Am I getting out? The average proposal sent out per location last year was 19, essentially one per day, one per working day, I should say. If you're at 30, that's great. It says that you're out in front, you're pacing in front of the average franchisee. If you're not, if you're sitting at 10, we're behind. Why what's not enabling us to get out here and do the 19? So, a couple things to walk away from. Make sure that we're tracking this as I'm giving you these reports. Make sure that you know your own numbers here, and then second, on the pricing. Again, if we have a client for over a year and we have not adjusted that pricing, now is the time to go out and have that conversation. It's an easy way to get a 3 to 5% revenue boost this year over last year. And if we don't do it again, your vendors are doing it to you. They're raising their prices, and so it's just a matter of whether you're going to pass that on or whether you're going to take it out of your own profit. If you have any questions, of course, you can reach out to me. Thanks a lot. This is Matt Krieger signing off. Talk to you in April.